Hello there, and welcome to another edition of Alex Fixes. I've been kind of on a tear lately as we're getting caught up after the big Christmas rush. It's kind of slowed down a little bit and allows us to get some stuff done in the middle of the day during the middle of the week. So today we've got a 6S Big Rock with just a servo swap is what it looks like. However, I will show you what I'm dealing with here. So it looks like they try to do it themselves, which is what I always encourage, and they put everything in a bag for us, so that's really good. Shouldn't be too hard. But I don't know if you guys have ever seen or felt a Big Rock, but this body is heavy. That is there's a lot of plastic on this Big Rock body, and that actually weighs like almost as much as my 10 scale car alone. Anyways, just an observation. So yeah, so we're gonna get in here and get this monstrosity fixed up, and then we'll make sure it works, and then call it good. Alright, before I put the servo horn on, I'm going to plug everything in and turn everything on so that it's centered, so that when I put this on, it's sitting in the right spot. Okay? Pretty easy stuff. And yeah, we'll move on. Well, that's interesting. So, it's plugged in right, and we still don't have steering, so it makes me wonder if they maybe misdiagnosed what's going on here. Maybe the steering pod on this radio is no bueno. Obviously the throttle's good, but we still don't have any steering at all, so that makes me wonder if it's the steering pod on the controller. So, and actually, I think it actually said it might need a new transmitter as well. Maybe that's what the deal is. So, okay, we'll figure this out. So the SLT3, this is a SR315, right? So the SLT3 uses a bind plug. The DXs, which this isn't like a DX3, you would just hold the button down as you turn it on so it flashes, and then you'd hold the bind button down on the radio and then let go, and it goes into it. But on this one, you got to do it 3 times. So it's like that. There we go. Turn that on. Aha! There we go. Now, let's see. Yep, look at that. So, throttle pod on the old radio has gone bad. I've actually seen this quite a bit. Not saying these radios are garbage in any way, shape, or form, but I have seen that before. You know, a lot of times a servo can be diagnosed as a servo when you should also check the radio. You know, if a place like us, we can just open one up, we can bind it real fast and see if it does the same thing, then obviously it's a servo. If it does what this is doing right now, I mean, obviously it works, but they're also going to need a new radio. So I'm going to have to call them and break the news to them. I didn't see the old servo that they had around, otherwise I would actually try it and see if it was maybe both, or I mean, who knows really what happened here, but at least we got it figured out. So now that it's centered, I'll come back here in a minute and we'll keep going. All right, so we've been given the all clear to go ahead and proceed. So we got ourselves a bunk radio, or transmitter, controller, whatever you want to call it, you know. And yeah, so now we just, we're going to make sure, we're going to turn everything back on. This is going to go on centered. Then we'll get the wiring so that it doesn't get hung up in these drive shafts. So this actually has a, see if I can show you, a little clip right here, and it's supposed to be for your battery, but I think we can also get the rest of the wires in there, or actually I think I'm going to run it underneath of this, so that there's no way that this will ever come up and get hung up in the drive shaft at all, because that's when bad stuff happens, and we don't want bad stuff to happen, do we? Alright, let's get going. Okay, just real quick, when you're dealing with something this big, obviously any metal on metal, you definitely want to use thread lock. I do use a tiny dab of thread lock when it comes to your servo screw, but you don't want to use a lot because you want to be able to get it out, right? So normally what I do is I'll dab a little tiny bit onto a surface, and then I'll take and I'll just barely dip it in it and just get the little edge like that, and then stick it in there. You don't want to like pour anything down there because it'll you'll never get it out again. So that's the main thing. You want to be able to get it out of it again. So okay, look at that. All right, now we're going to get all this arranged. All right, everything's back in place, and you can see most of the wires are, not most, all the wires are kind of out of the way. They are routed underneath of this. I remember this from when I had a fire team, actually, that the wires are actually routed underneath of this speed controller plate that it's held on. There's two little clips under there. So the servo wire goes to this, and then it's routed through there, and then it's held in nice and tight out of the way from the drive shaft. So yeah, I remember that as I was doing it. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember I had a fire team. I had a fire team a couple years ago. All right, I wanted to show you guys probably the main reason why this truck might have broken a servo, and I see it a lot on pillow ball vehicles, especially for people who are unfamiliar with pillow ball type suspension. A lot of times my interactions with customers and stuff, they tend to get kind of freaked out by slop and in an RC car suspension. And I always try to tell them, I'm like, well, first off, like, we're dealing with plastic parts here. You're going to get slop no matter what. Secondly, sometimes a sloppy car actually works better than a tighter car. You know, if you shim the suspension up on something, it might actually cause some binding up and stuff, and that is exactly what's going on here. So I want you guys to listen to this. Hear that? So my guess is that this got tightened down at some point, maybe because they were worried about sloppiness, without really knowing that what they were doing was actually causing the suspension to bind up really bad, which would put a ton of stress on the servo, and it would fry a servo pretty easily. So they give you this. This is one of the only times that I ever actually use an L-shaped Allen wrench. So this is 5mm, goes right in here. We're going to back off this a little bit. And also, pillow balls can also get kind of dirty, and so you need that room in there to not only have it, like, actually have a good suspension. Look at that. See, that sound is gone, and now that moves pretty fluid. So just for reference, we'll tighten it back down. So I'm tightening it basically hand tight. See? Back it off. There you go. Nice and smooth again. So got to watch that on those pillow ball cars. Also, even on C-Hub cars, you necessarily want it to be super tight on the suspension. Having a little bit of sloppiness is not such a bad thing, especially when we're dealing with basher vehicles, Traxxas, Arrma, you know, even my race car. The steering will do that, and you don't really even notice it when you're driving. So, okay, I think we're about ready to get this thing on the track real fast and make sure it works, and then we'll call it good. All right, test time. I just put a 3-cell in it just to make sure that it's going to work and everything, and steering's really responsive, so it's not going to go very fast. It's also really cold out, so I don't want to like hit a curb and break this guy's car, you know? All right, one more time. Got some low end rip. Ooh, that's cold. That's at 100%. You know, that's not too bad for a 3-cell, actually. For a 6S truck running on one 3-cell, that's not that slow. That's pretty cool. All right, we're done. I fixed it. This is Alex Fixes, episode 16. Make sure that you guys subscribe, like, tell your friends, and I'm sure I'll be making another one of these for you soon.